You're listening to Almost Alone, where we share real stories submitted by viewers. Every story you hear comes from someone who wrote in to tell their experience. For privacy, all names and details are changed, unless permission is explicitly given. Tonight, you'll hear 3 stalking stories told from the perspective of women who realized, too late, that someone had quietly built their entire routine around them. I used to think I was pretty cautious. I didn't party much. I kept my headphones low. I parked under lights. My walk home from the restaurant was only 15 minutes through a quiet neighborhood, and I'd done it so many times it felt automatic. I first noticed him in November. It was already dark when I locked the back door and started down the sidewalk. A couple of blocks in, I heard footsteps behind me. Not fast, not slow, just there. When I reached the light at the corner, I turned. A tall man in a dark coat stood half a house back, hands in his pockets, looking straight ahead. He didn't say anything. When the light changed, we both crossed. He turned down my street too. I told myself people live in the same direction. No reason to be weird about it. A few nights later, it happened again. Same block, same distance, same unhurried steps behind me. I pretended to fumble with my bag at the corner. His footsteps slowed. When I stopped, he stopped. I didn't look at him, but every part of me felt him standing there, waiting for me to move first. After that, it wasn't every night, which made it worse. I'd go a week without seeing him and start to relax. Then I'd clock out, step onto the sidewalk, and hear that familiar rhythm behind me, like he'd been waiting just out of sight. One night, I decided to test it. Instead of turning onto my usual street, I went straight. At the next block, I turned left, then right, making a big circle that still led generally toward my apartment. His footsteps followed every turn. When I sped up, he sped up. When I slowed down, he did too. At one point, I crossed to the other side of the road. A few seconds later, I heard his shoes on the pavement as he crossed behind me. The urge to knock on a random door and beg to come inside was so strong I almost did it, but the thought of explaining why I was scared of the man just walking behind me was somehow embarrassing. Instead, I cut through the alley to my building, practically running by the end. I slammed the back door shut, locked it, and stood there listening. The metal still vibrated from how hard I'd closed it. I barely slept that night. The next evening, I asked my coworker Jenna to walk with me for a few blocks. I didn't give details, just said I felt weird lately. We talked and laughed, and I kept waiting to hear extra footsteps. Nothing. No tall man. I started wondering if I'd built the whole thing up in my head. City paranoia. Too many true crime podcasts. Then a few days later, I found the paper. It was pushed just inside my apartment door when I came home from work. No envelope, just a folded sheet of cheap notepad paper. For some reason, it made my stomach drop before I even picked it up. Inside was a sketch. Just lines in blue ink, but I recognized the shape instantly. It was my walk home. The restaurant was marked with a little square. The next few streets were drawn as straight lines with tiny initials that matched the street names. At the top, a rectangle labeled with an X sat exactly where my building would be. He had drawn my route like a map. I called my sister first, then the non-emergency police line. 2 officers came out, took a report, asked if I'd seen anyone suspicious. I told them about the man in the dark coat, about the footsteps, and the way he matched my pace. They wrote it down, told me to call 911 if I saw him again, and suggested I avoid walking alone at night if possible. That was all they could do. My manager arranged for a coworker, Tom, to start driving me home after close. It helped, but in a way it made everything feel more real. You don't get an escort unless something is actually wrong. The first night Tom drove me, I kept checking the mirrors, watching the sidewalks as we passed. The streets looked empty, just pools of yellow light and fallen leaves. A week went by like that. Rides home, quick walks from the back lot to my door, no footsteps behind me. My shoulders slowly dropped from around my ears. Then one night we turned onto my street, and I saw him. He was standing at the corner near my building, in the same dark coat, facing the sidewalk I would normally appear from, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, completely still. He didn't look at our car. Our headlights washed over him, and he didn't turn his head like we were just another passing blur. Tom kept talking about something from work, but I'd gone quiet, staring as we rolled past. "Everything okay?" he asked when he noticed. "That's him," I said. My voice sounded flat. "That's the guy I told you about." Tom offered to loop back and say something to him, but the idea of confronting this man made my chest tighten. I told him no, I just wanted to get inside. We parked in the back and walked quickly to the entrance. Even though I knew the man was out of sight, my skin prickled like eyes were on us the whole way. After that, I stopped walking anywhere alone at night. I shifted my schedule, stayed with my sister, and eventually moved across town. I never saw his face clearly enough to pick him out of a crowd. Sometimes, when I'm driving home late and see a person standing on a corner, facing one specific direction and not moving, I think of him. And I wonder how long he kept showing up at that corner at that same time, waiting for a woman who doesn't walk down that street anymore. I moved into that apartment because it was cheap and safe enough. That's how the leasing agent described it. It was a small, older building with 8 units and long echoing halls. My door was at the very end of the second floor. The only other unit at that end was directly across from me. He opened his door the second day I was moving in. I was carrying a box of dishes when I heard a lock click. I turned and saw him standing in his doorway, mid-30s, forgettable face, plain clothes. "New neighbor?" he asked. His voice was soft, almost too quiet for the hall. "Yeah," I said. "Just moved in." He nodded at my door. "Across from me, I'm Mark." He didn't offer his hand, just watched me for a moment, eyes moving from the box to the pile behind me. "Long day," I said, trying to keep it friendly without inviting anything. "I've seen you coming and going," he said. "Night shifts, right? You get home late." I paused. I'd only been there 2 days. "Yeah," I said slowly. "Nurse." "Night nurse," he repeated. "You're usually back around 11, sometimes closer to 1. He was right. I hadn't told him my schedule. I laughed it off like it was a lucky guess and went inside. But the details stuck with me. Over the next few weeks, I realized how much of my life passed in that small strip of hallway. I heard his door open, his keys, his bare feet on the floor. He always seemed to step out right after I did. If I opened my door to take out the trash, his lock clicked behind me. If I headed for the stairs, he would appear, walking a few steps behind. He was never rude, just overly observant. "Rough night?" he'd say as I came home. "You're usually back earlier on Mondays." "Up early," he remarked once when I left at 6 a.m. "You normally head out at 8:15. I never confirmed or corrected him. Small things started to feel off. I'd come home and find my doormat crooked, pushed to the side like someone had nudged it with their foot. A piece of mail that had been sticking halfway out of my box would be tucked neatly inside my door. One night, I sprayed a new perfume on before leaving. I'd never worn it in the building before. When I got home, the hallway outside my door smelled faintly like that same perfume. Fresh, like someone had been standing there wearing it. I tried to brush it off, but I started checking my locks more often. My door had always been a little stiff. One weekend it got much worse. I had to jiggle the key hard to get it to turn, and once it took me 4 tries to open it. I put in a maintenance request. The building handyman came by, took the strike plate off, and frowned. "These screws were loose," he said. "Did you mess with this?" "No," I said. "It's been like that." "They were backed out from the inside," Mighty told me. Weird. That sentence made the hair on my arm stand up. Either someone had been in my apartment, or they'd been preparing to make it easier to get in later. That night, I dragged my laundry basket and a couple of boxes next to the door so they'd crash if it opened. I wedged a cheap doorstop under the knob. I lay in bed listening to the building settle, every sound amplified. Mark's comments got stranger once I started avoiding conversation. "You left in a hurry yesterday," he said one morning, smiling. "You forgot your coffee. You usually bring it with you." I hadn't seen him when I left. The idea that he'd been listening from behind his door made my skin crawl. Another time, I ran back because I'd forgotten my phone. I ducked into my place, grabbed it from the counter, and opened my door again less than 30 seconds later. He was suddenly in the hall, pretending to lock his door. "You're quick," he said. I stopped responding to him after that. I'd nod, keep my eyes down, and walk past. One night around 3 a.m., I woke up to a soft metallic sound. Not a bang, more like a careful click. I held my breath and listened. There it was again, a slow, deliberate turn. My doorknob. The doorstop squeaked faintly as the bottom of the door shifted just enough to press against it. Whoever was outside was being gentle, testing it. I got out of bed as quietly as I could and crept to the door. The hallway light was on. I could see the glow around the frame. My heart was in my ears. I put my eye to the peephole. All I saw was black. The light was still leaking around the edges, so I knew the bulb in the hall was on. That meant something was covering the peephole. A hand, a finger, a face. I backed away, grabbed my phone, and dialed 911. By the time the officers arrived, the hallway was empty. The peephole was clear. They checked the stairwell, walked the building, and knocked on a few doors, including Mark's. No one answered. They took a report and told me to call again if anything else happened. The next morning, I stepped out for work and heard his door open at the exact same time. It was like he'd been waiting for the sound of my lock. He smiled. "Everything okay? Lot of noise last night. I heard talking in the hall. Around 3, right?" I hadn't told anyone the time. I broke my lease a month later. I told the landlord I needed more space and couldn't handle the night shifts anymore. He seemed disappointed but understanding. As I was turning in my keys, he said, "Your neighbor across the hall will miss you. He said you were a good tenant, said he liked how predictable your schedule was." I didn't respond. Sometimes I think about waking up that night to the sound of my doorknob moving and that black peephole staring back at me. And I wonder how many times he stood there in the dark, completely silent, on nights I never woke up at all. I used to think online dating felt safer than meeting people in bars. At least you had messages and screenshots if things got weird. I don't think that anymore. It started with an old dating profile I'd forgotten about. I'd gone through a breakup, tried the apps for a while, then deleted them from my phone when I got tired of bad dates. Months later, on my laptop, I realized my account still existed. My photos, my bio, everything just sitting there. I felt weird about it, and finally deactivated the profile, removed the pictures, and hit confirm. It felt like closing a door. About a week later, I got a DM on Instagram from a brand new account with no picture. The username looked like random letters and numbers. Hey, we matched a while back. You disappeared, it said. I stared at it, trying to place the tone. I didn't recognize the name. Who is this? I wrote. You deleted your profile, they replied. You had the picture with the yellow dress, remember? I had used a photo in a yellow dress on the dating app. I'd never posted that photo on Instagram. Are you talking about Bumble? I asked. Yeah. You shouldn't have deleted it. I liked reading your bio. The way they phrased it made me uncomfortable. I blocked the account and tried to forget about it. 2 days later, on Twitter, a new account with another nonsense username sent me a message. Blocking doesn't erase history, it said. No context, no thread, just that line. I blocked that one too. Part of me figured it was the same person being petty, annoying but not dangerous. That changed on a Thursday night. I got home around 8, microwaved leftovers, and sat on my couch scrolling. A notification popped up from a third platform I barely used anymore. New message, unknown user. There was one image and no text. The photo was of my living room window from outside. You could see the glass, streaked from rain, and my curtains slightly parted. Inside, my lamp and the corner of my couch were visible. The angle was from the sidewalk, as if someone had stopped, aimed their phone, and taken the picture. It was clearly taken at night with my light on. It looked almost identical to how my apartment looked that second. I yanked the curtain shut so hard the rod rattled, then turned off the lamp and stood in the dark with my heart going crazy. I sent back, "Who are you?" The reply came almost instantly. "I told you, we matched." I called a friend, then my sister, then finally the non-emergency police line. An officer came by, took a report, and told me to keep my blinds closed and document everything. "Could be some guy you went out with once," he said, "or just someone trying to scare you. Don't respond if they message again." I changed passwords, turned on two-factor, updated my phone and laptop. I taped over my webcam, something I'd always thought was paranoid when other people did it. For a few days it was quiet. Then one afternoon my Wi-Fi cut out. The router restarted on its own. When it came back, I had to log in again with the default password from the sticker on the bottom. I told myself I'd change it later. That night, I got another message, this time through email. "You should really change that router password," it said. Attached was a screenshot of my laptop screen showing the router login page. I hadn't taken that screenshot. The next day, I brought my laptop to a repair place. The tech ran tests, frowned, and told me I had remote access software installed. I told him I'd never put anything like that on there. He removed it, advised me to replace my router, factory reset my devices, and change every password again. I did all of it. Then I moved. My lease was ending soon anyway, so I pushed the process. I found a small place across town on a higher floor, with windows that faced an interior courtyard instead of the street. I didn't post about it. I told only close family and one friend my new address. For a couple of weeks, nothing happened. I bought blackout curtains for the bedroom and kept them shut. I left my laptop closed when I wasn't using it. The silence slowly started to feel like maybe I'd finally outrun this person. Then one night, my bedroom light turned on by itself. I was in the living room watching TV when I noticed light spill under the bedroom door. I hadn't been in there since I'd made the bed that morning. I walked in and stared at the switch. It was flipped up. I told myself maybe I'd bumped it earlier, or the wiring was weird. Still, I slept with a lamp on that night. The next day, an app I didn't remember downloading popped up on my phone asking for camera access. The icon looked generic, like a system tool. I deleted it immediately and spent the rest of the day feeling like something was just slightly off in the air around me. The final message came a few nights later. I woke up around 3 in the morning, wide awake for no reason. The blackout curtains made the room completely dark. I reached for my phone on the nightstand and saw a new email notification from an address I didn't know. The subject line was blank. There was one attachment and a single sentence in the body. "You look peaceful when you're not scrolling." My hands went cold before I even opened the attachment. It was a photo of me sleeping. I was on my side in my new bed, hair across the pillow, phone on the nightstand exactly where it was in that moment. The framing was from low down, like the camera was near the foot of the bed or on the floor. Behind me in the photo, I could see the closed bedroom door and the blackout curtains. No windows in the shot, no mirrors, nothing reflective. Whoever took that picture had to have been inside the room. I called the police again. They came, looked around, checked the locks and windows. No sign of forced entry, no hidden cameras in obvious places. One of them suggested maybe the photo was from my old apartment and edited, but there was a print on the wall behind my bed in the picture. A small framed piece I'd bought after moving. It didn't exist in the old place. They took the email for evidence, told me they'd add it to my previous report, and suggested I stay with someone for a while. I moved in with my sister the next day. My lease on the new apartment is still active. My furniture is still there. I just can't bring myself to sleep in that bedroom anymore. Every time I get a notification from a username I don't recognize, my chest tightens. I haven't been back on any dating app since. Sometimes I wonder if I'd recognize him if I saw him on the street, if he's someone I passed on the bus or sat across from once on a bad first date. But mostly I think about that last message and the fact that at least once someone was standing close enough to my bed to watch me sleep and take a picture while I had no idea anyone but me was in the room. Thank you for listening to Almost Alone. Stories like these are reminders that the most frightening people are often the ones who never speak, the ones who watch quietly from the edges of our routines. If you've ever had an experience that still unsettles you, something you can't quite explain, or something you tried to forget, you can use the Google link in the description to share it. Your story might help someone feel a little less alone, and who knows, your story might be next.